Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 to 23. It's the story of Joseph and Mary and Jesus fleeing Bethlehem into Egypt to escape the murderous plot of King Herod to kill Jesus, which is a surprising thought, isn't it? The idea that there'd be a plot to kill Jesus, that somehow God's rescue plan could be wrapped up in such vulnerability as a human baby. And I think there are so many details here in this story that seem to challenge our modern Western ideas of success and of victory. I find it a surprising story. I'm surprised how this family had to flee a place of familiarity and relative comfort. This was Bethlehem, an ancestral home for them. Whatever inherited ideas we have of Christmas, of the inn and the stable, the more likely truth is that they were staying with kin, with wider family who were obliged to care for them. And culturally, they were staying in an area within the house for guests and for animals. That was pretty normal. So the surprise here for me is that they would have to then leave that place of comfort and familiarity. They were fleeing for their lives into a foreign land. They made that immensely difficult decision that around 26 million people in the world today have made, the decision to leave your home and become a refugee. And whilst there was a large Jewish community and diaspora in Egypt at this time, it's said that Alexandria was around a third Jewish and expat community, there's still this narrative of risk and vulnerability and discomfort for this young family. But I think one of the deeper truths unfolding in this passage is the way that our lives unfold according to God's plan and to God's purpose. And Matthew is showing here from how from of old, from the Old Testament, God has a plan revealed to the prophets, and that nothing and no one can hinder that plan. Herod's plot is revealed to Joseph by the angels. The family end up in a less than ideal situation, but then by going to Egypt, by living then in Nazareth, prophecy is fulfilled. God's plans and God's purposes are outworked, as it says, out of Egypt I called my son, and he will be called a Nazarene. So God knew and God worked through the disruption. And I think it's well worth reminding ourselves today that the same is true for us. That all of our days are ordained for us in God's book. That from the womb, He has a plan and a purpose for your life. And at times we may find ourselves on detours in Egypt or Nazareth in less than ideal contexts, places of discomfort, places of unfamiliarity. But as we hold on to His promises, as we hold on to Him in that place of vulnerability, we see that He is at work. He's working all things together for our good. And He is working through us to outwork His plan and purposes for His glory. God has got a great plan and a great purpose for your life, whatever your circumstances right now tell you. And what we learn from this story is that nothing and no one can thwart God's redemptive plan. So let's press into God. Let's live attuned to the Spirit like Joseph did, so that we can hear the whisper of His direction and follow where He leads us. Let's rejoice in our weakness. This is the story of a vulnerable baby, and yet God is at work through that weakness, watching over Christ in order to bring about His redemptive plan. He will do the same for you. Amen.